Poppy Playtime has recently been incredibly controversial. There have been so many things from the past few years that have happened leading up to the release of this game with the developers. These developers have been accused of harassing, manipulating, and even stealing from many parties. More specifically, one Minecraft animator by the name of Ekrcoaster. And amid all these problems starting to come out from various different YouTubers, I thought it would be no better time than right now to actually contact and interview Coaster himself to not only make everybody aware of the dark truth behind this seemingly innocent game, but also see how they have affected one of the most manipulated figures of them all. Join my Discord, link in the description, by the way. I'll be talking there probably right now. Also, just an obvious reminder before we get into this that everything here is alleged. Even though there's screenshots and tons of other proof that Mob Games did do all of these things, without Mob Games literally coming forward and admitting to any of this, it still is just a bunch of accusations. So the first topic I want to discuss is Poppy Playtime stealing from other games. So basically, Poppy was released back in late 2021, and the game immediately started to be called out for how many similarities it had with other games like Bendy and the Ink Machine. But one of the biggest cases of Poppy Playtime taking from other people is this Twitter thread made by the as mentioned YouTube animator named Ekrcoaster, where he had claimed that there were very many similarities between his own game by the name of Venge. In this thread last year, he explains and shows screenshots to defend his argument, and this is actually something that he still stands by, because in our interview he said, quote, "Since day one I have never said that they stole my game or stole my gameplay. In the original tweet I said that I thought the character designs were fishy, and I still stand by that. For example, on their release, their Steam description was very similar to mine. I'm not crazy for thinking that my game was involved in some sense. Like I said in the tweet, had this been another dev, I wouldn't care, but since I've got a history with them, it felt like a blow." And I feel like these are very good points, especially when considering that last line of, "Since I've got a history with them, it feels like a blow." Because yeah, this actually isn't the first time the devs of Poppy Playtime have stolen from Coaster. Years ago in 2020, Coaster and one of the two developers of Mob Games named Enchanted Mob have had a long-running beef ever since Coaster started first blowing up as an as-mentioned animation channel. Because around this time, Enchanted Mob, more specifically the CEO named Zach, had sent Coaster a DM requesting him to come and work with Enchanted Mob and their channel. There were a ton of initial red flags in these DMs. For example, Zach trying to get Coaster to end his own live stream to discuss the business opportunities. But with how much Coaster initially looked up to these larger creators, he was a bit excited and maybe even naive about Enchanted Mob's intentions. To make a long story short, the business opportunity just simply didn't work out, especially after Zach was doing things like threatening Coaster that this was his only real chance of being successful as an animator. But after these things fell through, the same Zach began to become hostile towards Coaster, getting caught allegedly trashing Coaster and his animations, saying that he should just entirely quit what he was doing. Enchanted Mob even went as far as to start using the same outro music as Coaster, and they even accused Coaster himself of stealing the song despite him having it years previously. The goal of these actions were to presumably try and sabotage Coaster and his animations because, in Coaster's words, quote, "They were doing a lot of stuff against me because they saw me as a threat," which was backed by this image he shared with me of Mob basically admitting to this. And of course, when they didn't get what they wanted with these tactics, that's when they began to allegedly trash talk and steal Coaster's own stuff out of desperation. And when I asked Coaster why he himself thought they stole things like his outro music, he said, quote, "I think they were just trying to be assholes. I think they knew exactly what they were doing messing with a kid like that. I think they wanted to get me all heated up, and to be fair, it did work." This controversy, along with people like Animation Sins attacking Coaster around this time, even caused him to sort of fall through. Ever since all of these issues, Coaster said that, quote, "It's been almost non-stop stress. It's better now, but it used to feel like I was completely outcasted from the animation community, and it made me hate animating. I still really hate it to this day. Hence why my channel is essentially dead and abandoned." All of this stuff honestly just blows my mind because Mob Games, more specifically Enchanted Mob, basically allegedly took this kid who just had a passion for animating and tried to manipulate him and use him for their own benefits. Not to mention, this was a kid who was a huge fan of Mob at the time and looked up to them. Quote, "I used to adore them back in 2016 and 2017 like crazy, but stopped after all the bullying happened. I think it was one of those don't meet your idols moments for me." Moving on from the more retrospective stuff, I had asked Coaster a few questions actually in regards to how he feels about Mob Games today. I had brought up all the controversy to him once more and asked if he was still upset with what Enchanted Mob allegedly did to him, and he replied, quote, "I'm more so annoyed. I feel like all of this is so stupid and I'm so over it. For me, I think they could be forgiven. I'm not the only one they've hurt, so I can't speak for others, but to me and for my story only, I feel like they can be redeemed and forgiven. But I don't think all of this is something that could be fixed with a simple apology tweet. A lot of damage has been done. I don't believe the majority of their company is bad. It's just the people I have history with. I have friends who are employees and many who are ex-employees. Those people are absolutely awesome and are so talented. talented. After this, I asked Coaster how he actually felt about Poppy Playtime as a title, and he said, quote, "I haven't played it or watched anyone play it. All of the information about the gameplay is stuff my friends have told me. I'm sure the people who are on their hands and knees coding the game are lovely, talented people. From what I heard, it's very well polished and has an excellent chase scene, which I applaud it for. Had this game been made by anyone else, I probably would love it. It seems like a cool game." So overall, it doesn't seem like Coaster has actually too many hard feelings towards Poppy Playtime itself, but actually seems more angry with the shady history and dark intentions with Enchanted Mob themselves rather than Poppy Playtime as a whole. Moving on from this controversies, there's also been some more recent ones I wanted to discuss as well. For example, Poppy Playtime recently has started selling plushies of their own characters, and the response to this has actually been somewhat mixed, because a lot of people, including myself, have been noticing something weird with this game and the developers, and that's how greedy they've sort of been. The mobile port costs money, the Steam version costs money, every chapter is going to cost money and force you to have bought every single one previously in order to move on, which already seems a bit weird, but that's not necessarily a big deal. Where it gets worse, in my opinion, is that in just one chapter, Poppy Playtime has started selling shirts, posters, now has a stuffed animal line, and most controversially, they've even sold NFTs. So basically, in pretty much every avenue, the team has been trying to make money, and it just seems a bit weird for just the first chapter. Like, if this is everything that we're getting for chapter 1, imagine everything we're gonna get for chapter 2, chapter 3, or however many chapters there are in the full game. Some of the games that this title has clearly taken inspiration from, like Bendy, have handled things a lot better by making their first chapters entirely free, allowing people to actually try the game before buying them, let alone dropping like 20 pieces of merch. I mean, obviously it's working, hence why they keep doing them, so people are buying them, but it just seems weird. Although, who am I kidding? They would never try and manipulate kids who enjoy their content to try and get some sort of benefit out of it. Going back into the main topic of the video, being the Coaster controversy, there was something super interesting that I noticed about Coaster throughout both our talks and the actual interview, which is that for the most part, he hasn't really seemed to hold any sort of a grudge towards Poppy Playtime or even Enchanted Mob as a game. It just seems overall like something he wants to simply move past. In the interview, as mentioned, he said that if it wasn't for Enchanted Mob, he probably would have liked the game, and that he doesn't put any of the blame on the Poppy Playtime devs as much as he does the specific bad apples among them all. I only had him speak on mostly his own controversies just because that was obviously what he knows best, so it doesn't excuse everything the Poppy Playtime team has done, but it's super nice to actually talk with Coaster since it's been a while since we've heard from him, and with everything he's been through, I like to see that he isn't holding a harsh grudge against anyone. He's kept a super positive attitude among literally everything, and he seems to be in a better place than ever throughout these negative things. So despite a lot of the darker topics discussed in this video, I love seeing that he seems to be moving on in a positive direction. Much love and respect for him for doing this interview. If you want to see every question that I asked him, I put it in the description because there were tons of different things he talked about, but I only just showed the highlights. This also was only covering a tiny bit of the controversy around Poppy Playtime, because in fact there's a lot more to discuss, which I talk about way more in depth in this video here. Go check it out. Subscribe and peace.